So how to become a focused leader and grow your business. So my main aim for this workshop is to simply share, to provide you with as much advice, insights, guidance as I can. I do want this to also be interactive. Anybody who's been on webinars with me, I love to ask questions. And if you could just use, we're going to use the chat, yeah, just to interact as I go through. In addition to that, I also want to introduce you to what I call the Leaders Daily Framework. Okay. And that's something I'll be talking about. And just to also let you know that there are no questions off limits here today. There will be hopefully a question and answer section at the end. But one of the reasons why doing this live is always helpful is that we can tailor this, okay? We can customize this. So I am constantly looking at the chat function. That's what we're going to be using. We've done it in such a way where it comes to me, it's not distracting, and I hope that that helps also. But what we want to do is we really want to use this time and maximize this time. So I've got to start off with two questions, and the first question is just so that I can know my audience, what do you do? So if you can use the chat function to type in what you do, how you describe that, could be your job title, you want to go a bit more detail. The reason why that's beneficial is because it will simply help me understand my audience today. I can tailor it accordingly. Are you somebody with direct reports or not? As a leader, that helps. Are you a business owner? You've got your own business, startup, scale up stage, wherever you might be. That's brilliant. And if not, that's also, if you're a solopreneur, that's fine. So if you can type in the chat, what do you do? That's the first thing. So thank you very much. Some of you have been putting that in the chat, which is brilliant, as well as the number of direct reports. Brilliant. Thank you very much. That's very helpful. And then the second question is, what are you looking to get out of this session? Again, that just simply helps me to understand you've invested this time. I want to make it worth your while. The more I know, the more I can customize it, maybe move fast in some areas where that wasn't necessarily the focus, maybe slow down in some other areas where that's the focus. So you get my point. So the more you can type in what you're looking to get out of this session, that simply just provides a framework for me to be able to tailor this to meet your needs. So thank you very much. How to be more focused during the working week. Brilliant. That's absolutely a good reason to be here, right? Improve being a leader, be about allowing freedom for development. Brilliant. Ideas on how to maintain focus and refine my own business. Brilliant. Loving this. This is really good. You guys are on it. Yeah. Typing in, sending it through, loving this energy that's coming through already. So keep it coming if you're typing it through. As you can see, I've got all my I'm looking here, there, and everywhere, giving tough love as a leader. Yes, definitely. We'll see where that might come through. All right, brilliant. So keep that coming through. So let me start off by giving you some insights. Okay, so now over the last 2 years, I have been speaking to a good number of business leaders, over 500 over the last 24 months. And here are some of the reasons why they say that they're failing, right? This is based on conversations. This is based on coaching sessions, training sessions, and most of this webinar, I'm going to be referring to this because a lot of data came out from these sessions with them that I'm going to be sharing with you, and hopefully we can learn from it. But yeah, keep your insights on what you want to get out of this comment. I can see it's coming through as well. So thank you very much for that. Now, before I share these 5 areas, I want you to be read it through, and which one resonates with you the most. Now, I've given them numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let me go through them all and then put in the chat which ones resonate with you, because again, it might give us insight into where are we all at on this journey of focus and attention. So the first thing that came up with many of these leaders was that they were trying to do too many things at once. I don't know if that resonates with you, but that's the first one. The second one, what came out quite strongly, was struggling to say no. and therefore drowning in work. And by the way, it didn't matter what level. It could be the entrepreneur, the leader, the business leader, same thing. What we found third was spending too much time thinking rather than doing. And then the fourth one was not having a clear plan to follow. In fact, typically you hear things like, I'm just making it up as I go, I'm just winging it, and then the fifth one was not keeping the promises they make to themselves. So as I've gone through those five, which ones resonate with you? Just type in the numbers 13521, whatever it is. But thank you. Yep. If people are saying there's a lot. Yes, already people have typed in. Yeah, thank you very much. Rick there, Nazar, yeah, brilliant. Rachel, yeah, Kate, brilliant, yeah. And it simply highlights that we can all relate to this. Yeah, this is the world that we are in today. So if somebody said nothing, I'll be quite surprised, because as I look at that list, I see myself. All right. And so this has become an important topic for us to talk about. And so to give you an overview of today's session, we're going to look at three key ingredients that's going to really help us to identify how to move forward. Now, number one is clarity, the importance of having clarity. Number two is then that would lead to us having more confidence. And then the third area we're going to look at is consistency. All right. So clarity, confidence, consistency. It's going to shape this webinar workshop today. And I'll be asking questions as we go along, sharing some examples of some of my clients as well as we go along. But first of all, for some of you that don't know me, let me just introduce myself. Who am I? My name is Toye. I'm the founder of and CEO of Business Leaders Coach. I've been coaching people for over 20 years, coaching, training, developing people. Some of you are even on the webinar today, which is brilliant. And it's just been a passion of mine. And I think I would say, use the word that I feel like I have been privileged, right, to coach and train thousands of leaders that have gone on to launch, start their businesses. Some of them I've coached them maybe from their very first job. Now some of them are running their own companies. So I've had that privilege of seeing that, but also I've coached people in their first line management and in their experience in work. So I've almost like been alongside people in their career journey. And one of the things that has come up for me personally, and why I'm very passionate about this, is I've noticed something, right? And so my vision is to develop conscious business leaders in the SME space, because when the leader gets things right, everybody flourishes. And I always have this saying that your leadership is spoken about around the dining table. And that could be good and that could be bad. You get my point? And so if we can be in a place where we are developing great leaders, everybody benefits. And so that's a bit about me. That's just my passion. Maybe I'll share a few more things, but just to give you a bit of insight of why I'm passionate about this. Now, in addition to that, let's now talk about why we're here. So why should we laser in on our ability to focus and manage our attention in 2023? Why is this such a hot topic? You might not know how serious this is, right, in this AI distracting world. So I'm going to share a few things with you, three specific reasons why I want you to take this topic really seriously. Number one is that building your focus sets you apart, as most leaders prioritize busyness over productivity. Now, what you're looking at is the Harvard Business Review magazine that came out March to April. And the the cover there is the busyness trap. And here are some of the things that they found, right? Number one was that most leaders feel like they are being productive because they are busy. Now, can anybody relate to that? Where sometimes you just feel like, yeah, because I'm doing a lot, therefore I'm being productive. Yeah, and we're finding out that, well, that's obviously that's not true, right? And so what's happening is majority of leaders often succumb to distractions and busyness. And so so because of that, we kind of like give ourselves this accolade that, well, because I'm busy, I must be productive. But what this article highlights there, as you can see, activity is not a metric for success, right? And it's simply giving us the insight that just because we're being so busy doesn't mean that we are being productive. And this then leads an opportunity. What it means is that you and I, we can differentiate ourselves by honing our ability to concentrate and maintain focus on essential areas. All right. Somebody said that their wife gave them a busy book. Yeah, there you go. I mean, it's busy, 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 busy. Yeah, thank you. Rachel, talking about busy is often like a badge of honor. And it's funny because can any of you, I want you to pay attention now as you have conversations with people and you ask somebody, say, how are you? Wow, man, I'm so busy, and it's kind of like, yeah, I'm so busy. Everybody's like, yeah, I'm more busy than you, right? But it's not leading to productivity. And what I'm trying to highlight here is that actually this is a window of opportunity because leaders that can demonstrate exceptional focus can gain a competitive advantage. You get it? We can stand out because we're being focused. Now, in addition to that, we find that building our ability to focus and manage our attention is actually the ultimate key to achieving success in the 21st century, right? This book came out this year by Gloria Marks, Attention Span. And she found some fascinating insights due to her studies. She said that most leaders, that their ability to focus and manage their mind is deteriorating. Can anybody relate to that? Where, oh wow, even just to pay attention to something is now becoming more challenging. Yes, many of you are saying yes, you can see. In fact, based on this, right, the research shows that followers will consider a leader's ability to focus as a key indicator of success. Because, I mean, just think about that. Just slow down and think about it. If everybody is saying that, wow, I'm so distracted, and one person says, no, I've actually got a way of knowing how to stay focused, you can see that this is really going to be an exceptional way of standing out. And somebody just asked, is it going to be recorded? Yes, it's being recorded. We'll send it out later once it's, after this. Either today or tomorrow, we'll send out the recording, right? So, in addition to that, we know that leaders with this ability to focus will enjoy an enriched life, not only in work, but outside work, because this is a skill that we now need to start putting into practice, not just in work, but outside work. And obviously, many of us know working from home and all this is meaning that work is merged with life, life is merged with work. So we can begin to see why this is such an important skill to develop, and leaders will have a better capacity to see patterns for the future trends because you are able to focus. You get it? So Matthias is saying, yeah, so true. Yeah, absolutely. I get you, you know. And so this is such an important skill that we need to hone in on. I hope you're all with me on this. Now, the third benefit of honing in on focus and managing attention is that building your focus equips you to lead confidently in today's VUCA world. Now, I always, at this point, want to just ask my audience, how many of you have heard the term and understand the term VUCA? Just put yes or no in the chat. It just gives me an idea of where my people are at today on the webinar. I've got some yeses and I've got some nos. All right, this is good. There you go. Yeah, I've got some people who I've trained them on that, saying yes. All right, there you go. So for those that don't know, you need to know that you are living in a VUCA world. Now, VUCA stands for being volatile, is volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous. This was a term that the US Army came up with back in 1987. They declared the world as being volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous, right? And now I found out about VUCA in 2018. So you could imagine 2018, remember 2018 before pandemic? Yeah. It was, and talking about, wow, things are not certain. And then pandemic. Now there's Ukraine war. It's sad what's seeing what's going on in Israel, Hamas, this whole thing. But you can see that nothing is certain anymore. So we are even more in a VUCA world, and even 1987 when this was described. But the reason why this is important for you and I is that you need to understand that most leaders are not aware that we are now living in a VUCA world. And that could be to your benefit, because when you plan, you know that things are not certain. When you plan, you know already that things are volatile. When you plan, you know that things are complex, right? And Bob Johansson, who's the person who's done perhaps the most research on this, also said, well, the solution to VUCA is having a vision, having understanding, having clarity, and having agility. That's the added edge. And so leaders that can cut through this complexity, analyze critical information, and make confident decisions, even in challenging and uncertain times, will thrive. But that can only happen with strong focus. You see, so as I speak to you, I'm not only speaking to you in the now, I'm speaking to you 5 years' time, 20 years' time. You could only imagine how more complex the world is going to be, right? And as I said, Bob Johansson, you can read his books, fascinating insights that he has. He says leaders now need to adopt a different kind of VUCA, a vision, understanding, clarity, and agility. So let's get into the meat and bones of what we're going to be talking about today. Those three areas: clarity. Yeah, Bob Johansson has written a number of books. Maybe I'll put a link in the email I'll send out to some of his books. I mean, yeah, I mean, it's really good stuff to read, to digest. Okay, number one, clarity. How to find more clarity with less certainty as a confident leader in your space. Now, unfortunately, most people set themselves up to fail because they are unclear, number one, on their purpose. And obviously, if you're not clear on your purpose, then it's very difficult to have clarity on your priorities. And then you need to have a plan. So we can see here that a lot of leaders, especially as I think about these 500 leaders that I've talked about, and or no purpose, which led to no priority, which led to no clear plan. They had a plan, but you can see that the plan is not linked to the purpose and priority. So let's go through each one. I'll share. In some cases, I'll move quite fast. I'm just looking at time. But as I said, you get the recording, and I'll share some of my clients that I've worked with. In some situations, I've changed their names just to keep their confidentiality, right? But when it comes to purpose, here's what we find: that most people feel that everything is important, all tasks are urgent, right? And so people feel that the solution to the challenge is, well, I've just got to do more. I don't know if you feel that way sometimes. I've had conversations with people, it's like, I've just got to get out there, just got to do more. And you find out that in this world that we're in today, doing more is not always the solution. Yeah, you got to have a purpose behind it. But here's what then happens, right? Thoughts about making a difference turn into, well, I've just got to survive. And so when you talk about things like Simon Sinek, which I'm going to mention here, oh, you got to have a clear purpose. You'd be like, yeah. I know I need to get around to doing that, but right now I just got to survive. Can anybody relate to that? I just got to survive. I just got to keep the things moving. Got to keep on ticking. And so what this demonstrates, if you can relate to that, it's a key thing here. It's a sign that you've put the clock ahead of the compass. You put the clock ahead of the compass, where you're moving fast, but you do not know the direction it's going. You haven't made a decision around the clarity of where things are going. And so you're moving fast. Is the busyness, but is it getting you closer to where you want to go? So based on that, things like start with why, they just become a good idea. And you might even say, well, it's not for me right now. In fact, I've had conversations in the last few weeks where people have said, Toye, all this is true. Yeah, absolutely. Have you got anything written down with a clear purpose statement? Oh, well, I'll get around to it. You get it. Now, my client here, Jane, I'll just share a few things that she, when we started having our coaching sessions, this was her situation, struggling with maintaining focus on project one. By the way, project one is something that I always encourage people to have, that there's this project in the next 90 days that you're trying to move forward, and it's the thing that gets you closer to your destination. We'll talk more about that, right? In addition to that, she was facing challenges with prioritization and often gets sidetracked by checking messages and emails first. I mean, is that something that you relate to? Some people, as soon as they wake up, they just gravitate to that mobile phone and then they just get in. Yeah, some people are putting their hand up saying, yeah, that's me. Look, don't worry. I've heard a lot, I've had to put things in place so that that doesn't happen to me also, right? And in addition to that, as you can see, attempts to schedule dedicated time for project one and stuff. But her initial plan, it wasn't working. And so she was being distracted and she was obviously wasn't successful. And I don't want to read everything here, but I just want to highlight something that she mentioned that maybe you can relate to this. She says, as someone keen on self-improvement, it was disconcerting to realize that even though I desperately wanted to change my reaction in specific situations, I often fell back into old habits. It was like being on a treadmill running hard but getting nowhere, right? And if can you relate to that, where you're trying hard but you find out that you're just not moving forward. Okay, we'll come back to what she had to do, the things that she put in place, right? Now let's talk about priorities. Again, we've just talked about the importance of having a clear purpose. The second thing is having clear priorities. But what we find is that most leaders struggle to prioritize tasks, leading to wasted time and resources. In fact, for some people, I've asked them to, just look back at your last week, document what you've done, put an A, B, C, high priority, medium priority, low priority. Guess what, people? 9 times out of 10, people come back telling me, Toye, it was very difficult. And I say, why was it difficult? They say, because everything was a high priority. Can you relate to that? Everything's a high priority, right? And that's a challenge. And I tell you the reason why. Because they don't distinguish low value tasks from high value tasks. And in addition to that, they lack alignment, which results in shifting attention from one thing to the next, right? And so this whole priority thing is a key thing of being able to know how to move things forward. But in addition, when they fail to establish priorities, it usually leads to missing valuable opportunities. They're not doing work that is associated to the level that where they should be operating, and then they end up doing other people's work. So if you have direct reports, for instance, and you're not clear on your priorities, you can end up doing your direct reports work. You get my point? And this is something that I see time and time again, because when you don't have clarity of purpose, then it's very difficult to have clarity of priority. And when you don't have clarity of priority, you most likely will gravitate towards doing the things that you maybe just enjoy, or the easy things, and maybe not even the difficult things, or maybe not the things that you need to create to be doing, right? Now, my client here, Adam, he shares about his situation. He says, my typical week was a total mess. It was filled with chaos and stress, and I had no idea where to begin with my task. Everything seemed jumbled up, and I often felt overwhelmed, not knowing how to navigate through my days. I don't know if any of you can relate to that. We're going to come back to Adam and Jane and see how they've implemented this system that I'm going to be sharing with you, so you can see what happens just by a few things that you can do. And let me promise you this. It's simple to do. It might be challenging to implement. Number two, let's talk about plan. So let's now talk about this whole idea of having a plan. If I was to ask you, do you have a plan? Put in the chat. Yes, no, sometimes, maybe, if, whatever, right? But I want to give you an idea of having some kind of criteria around your plan. Because here's what we found, right? Was that most leaders did not have a plan that was focused on building for the future. Yeah, it's not just having a plan. It's a plan that is building for the future. Many of you have put in there, yes, absolutely, loose plan, but the main thing is having a plan that is building for the future, right? And what does that mean? It means that they don't have clear objectives specifying what they need to get done that day that is linked to the future. So let me give you an idea of why this is important. If you were to think about the next best-selling book or the next best-selling album in 2024 or 2025, what's happening right now? You get it? That person is writing the book now. That person is in the studio right now. And so this is how we got to figure out in our day how we are able to somehow be working on something that is future focused. That's a good criteria to know if we've had a good day. That's not just things about the past, because a lot of times we get distracted by a lot of things that pulls us in the past and doesn't pull us into the future. That's a good way of us knowing how to have a good plan. And then in addition to that, here's what we find is that they over or underestimate how much time things really take and therefore get discouraged. So which one are you, for instance? Are you someone that overestimates how much time things would take? Or do you underestimate how much time things would take? Put it in the chat. I'm an over or under. Just put it in the chat. It's good to, yeah, some people are saying they underestimate. Most of us do that, isn't it? It's like, oh, this won't take that long. And then next thing, 8 hours later, you're like, oh, I didn't know it would take this long, right? So these are things that we need to be aware of. And in addition to that, a big challenge for many of us is then we can easily get distracted from the plan, from this plan, from the next shiny thing. The shiny habit syndrome. I've spoken to many entrepreneurs. I mean, we have this 1 hour coaching session. Everything's planned, detailed. 2 weeks later, I hear from maybe their direct report. Oh yeah, they started implementing it, and then after that, something else happened, and then we've gone in another direction. The shiny syndrome, the shiny habit syndrome. Is that you? These are some of the challenges that we are all facing, and this is the reason why focus is such an important part. Now, another client of mine, Jonathan, he shares, before applying the planning principle, managing my time was always difficult. However, with the implementation of a 4-week plan using Excel, that's something that he came up with. Everything changed for the better. I divided my job into manageable tasks. Many of us know this, putting our rocks in place. So I'm sure it's not a big insight, right? But I do want to highlight that these principles are becoming so important that we need to apply, and we need to be cascading that down to those that we lead. Now, in addition to that, I just want to mention here that at the end of this session, I'll be offering you a chance to speak with me. And I do want to just spend some time with some of you that's interested, where we'll be uncovering anything that's holding you back. We can review your current system, talk through your current priorities, and in the call, we can do that. If you want one of these calls, just put in the chat, call back, and then we can get back to you on that. But here's some tips for clarity, okay? Discover your purpose. Have a clear purpose statement that incorporates your holistic life. One of the things that's important when we talk about purpose is that you got to think about your entire life. You can't just be thinking about work or this area or that area. You got to incorporate your holistic life. That's an important part of Business Leaders Coach. When we coach you, your entire being. Obviously, work is an important part to that, right? In addition to that, note down your priorities, where you spend your time. How can you maximize your returns? You need to get clear on what that is. And with everything that you do, you can always ask yourself, am I doing a valuable task? And in addition to that, be open to change. In fact, you need to expect it, right? Because most of us don't change our perspective. The first thing that needs to change in anybody is our perspective on things. We change our perspective, we can easily change our behavior. All right. So I hope this is all making sense. The second thing that we're going to now talk about is confidence, how to build confidence daily despite uncertainty around. Okay. Now, this is the thing that challenged me the most, especially after doing, building leadership training courses, with VUCA. And I thought, man, there's just so much to do. People are overwhelmed. And I'll share some data that I've got, with webinars that I've asked certain questions. I always get the same response, right? Which is, I'm just overwhelmed. This is just too much. Now, so I thought, well, we can't be doing all these 12,000 things. We've got to find a few things that we do each day that can really help us. And so out of my research, I came up with these 5 things that we need to do daily. As I said, they're quite simple, but to apply it might be more challenging. Okay, let me just mention that, right? And it's this simple, right? Think, plan, do, reflect, learn. I'll unpack what this looks like, right? But these 5 daily habits, right? No matter what level you are as a leader, what you will find is that in any situation, you've always got to lead yourself first. And what you're going to find is that your thinking, your planning, your doing, your reflecting, and your learning is always going to be an essential part. And so I honed in on these 5 daily habits after reading thousands of books and pulling all these things together. And by the way, just as a side note, some of you might have seen in the emails that I've just sort of relaunched my YouTube channel, where I'm now summarizing best business books. If you haven't subscribed, please do. I think we can put that in the chat for people to link on that. Because again, it's one of those things where people don't. I recommend books. People don't have the time. It's been quite embarrassing sometimes. People say, "Oh yeah, Toye, somebody has shown me a stack of books and said, I've been watching all your stuff and I bought all these books." And I said, "Have you read any of them?" "Oh yeah, well, I'm getting around to doing that." So I thought, you know what? Let me try and see how I can do that once or twice a month. Summarize some of these books so you can actually put something, into practice, because it's not about reading these books. It's about applying it. But here's the reason why this is important: our thinking, right? And what we find is most leaders do not have an allocated think time in the day, right? They don't have a think time in the day. Yeah, somebody mentioned Blinkist. Yeah, that's really good. There are lots of other ones, Headway, etc. That we'll talk about learning in a short while. But the question is for you: think about this. Do you have your think time in the day? Do you have a time that's allocated for you to, really take your thoughts into consideration? How am I thinking? Yeah. The way we learn is through a shift in our thinking. I've trained thousands of people. I've seen people come in day one, say, "I don't really know anything." And then I've seen the same person 5 years, 10 years time thinking, "Wow, look at this person." Yeah, maybe they've grown a bit in height. Maybe they've grown also, wide ways, but that's not for me to mention. But you get my points. Like, at the end of the day, it's our thinking that makes us grow. So this is an important part that we need to focus on. So to grow in critical and creative thinking, we need to stretch our thinking. And there are ways of how we can do that. Leaders are readers, all right? So you got to make that a habit, right? Reading, making notes, learning from. There's so much out there today. In fact, the problem is too much information. So you need to know how to select it, in the right way. And then we can ask ourselves, how can we find new ways of doing things? Yeah. In this world that we're in today, we need to push the agenda so that we are thinking in new ways. We have AI now. You need to be thinking, how can you leverage of AI to supercharge your thinking? You got to use it in the right way. And these are things that we need to be focusing on. And I would simply say that the more books you read, the faster you will grow, right? Because at the end of the day, you will expand your perspective of many things. And don't just read things that you're familiar with. Go outside, challenge your thinking if you want to be that leader who's leading in this 21st century. A lot of people are stuck in a bubble. They don't realize that things have moved on fast, right? And the quickest way to do that is, one of them is by reading. Obviously, you can be around people. That's another good way of doing it as well. But let me just share a few things with one of my clients, Adam. There's a lot of text there, so I'm just going to hone in on this part where he says, "I gained much needed clarity on what I needed to accomplish. And for the first time, I could see everything laid out on paper. It was like a weight that had been lifted off my shoulders, and I felt like I had more headspace to breathe." You remember Adam, who said that everything was all confusing? We started to get him to slow down, think, write things down. Clarity is coming. Yeah. So that's the first thing. The second thing in our daily habit is plan, right? So what do we mean by that? Well, we find that most people have a plan, but they don't have a plan necessarily that's connected to their one year plan to a 90-day plan to a weekly plan to a daily plan. In fact, I would say a life plan. If we really want to go down, you should have a life plan that connects with maybe a 10-year plan, and then a 1 year, and then a 90-day, and a weekly, and a daily. It's a connection that's the key, right? And then in addition to that, most have too many must do's in the day. And I'm sure you've heard the saying that it's not just a must do, it's a what you should not do. Have any of you heard of that as well? That there should be certain things that you shouldn't be doing, that you need to be adding to your list. But in addition to that, I would also say that this daily plan needs to be done every day, right? And then you need to be thinking about the 7 key areas daily. What are these 7 key areas? You need to connect your purpose with your priorities, with the people that you need to engage with your own personal plan, with a process and projects and priorities. Yeah, those are the 7 areas every day: your purpose, your priorities, your people, your personal agenda for yourself, your processes, your projects, your priorities. You might be like, well, where do you get all that from? Well, that's one of the reasons why, a business leaders coach, I created this leaders one-page focus template. Now, in this template, you can see there, it simply helps you to think that way. And if you want a copy of that, just say 1 page, and then we'll respond with a link so that you can download that. Watch the video first, and then you can download the 1-pager. It just simply helps you to think through these most important things in the day, right? And just to give you an example here, Jonathan, remember what he said? Planning, so my productivity has significantly increased. The reason why this becomes exciting is because when you start to do this, you begin to see your progress, which calms you down. It might not be fast, but you're making progress, which is a key thing in the world that we are in today, because our distraction doesn't remind us of the progress we are making. Let's move forward. Do. Remember, think, plan, do. Why leaders find it hard to execute on their daily plan. Well, now we're going to go back to Gloria Marx. You remember Gloria Marx, her book with the attention span? Here's what she found. Maybe some of you have heard this. Put it in the chat. Have you heard this before? Yes or no would be good. Number one, we spend 47 seconds on a screen before shifting our attention. You familiar with this insight? Yeah, I mean, I would definitely encourage you to get that book, Attention Span. I mean, eye-opening insights about TikTok, about social media, the influence it has. I mean, you just need to, as a leader, right? You need to know these things. And let me tell you the reason why you need to know these things. Because you can know this and you can have all these parameters. But remember, we as leaders, we're influencing other people. So some of our direct reports that we are empowering are suffering from these same things. So we need to equip them with the same level of thinking. Because the one thing that we can't do for each other is put those brakes on our distractions. You get it? Like, we can't. You can only educate. That's the reason why I'm doing this webinar. It's like, no, everybody needs to know this. I need to encourage other people to do the same, because at the end of the day, it's our cognitive responses that's the real area where leadership is now getting into. No matter who you are, no matter how religious you might be, or how faith building you might be, or how integral you might be, we're all facing these challenges. And at the end of the day, we need to know how to conduct ourselves. And these are some of the insights that's showing us in the world that we're in today. Look at this second thing she says, that it takes 25 minutes to return focus to a task after interruption. She had cameras. They put these people that volunteered, they had cameras on them, and they were able to see that over time, people actually interrupted themselves. In fact, they came up with this thing called internal distractions. I don't know if any of you can relate to this. Have you actually allocated time to focus on something, and then out of boredom, you distract yourself? Has that happened to any of you, where you actually just think, oh, yeah, maybe I need to just check that website? Has that happened to you? Where like, oh, I wonder if I've got another message, and she's noticed that we are beginning to even distract ourselves when we've allocated that time to do that thing. So this is why this is becoming important. That the doing part, we can know all this. And many of you have put, yeah. It's interesting to see how many of you can relate to this, you know. Um, and one of the key things, let's talk about some solutions that, what we can do is allocate time, right, for the right things. So we've noticed that the reason why we're not moving forward is that they don't allocate appropriate time for project processes and people. And again, this is one of the things that our one page will help us to focus on those essentials because they're going to move us forward. And in addition to that, they don't give, a lot of these leaders, they don't give themselves and others a clear deadline. Giving ourselves a deadline is one of the ways of pushing things forward. Now, let's go back to Jane. Remember, Jane was overwhelmed, waking up in the morning, doing her tasks, emails, and everything. She changed the order of things, started to take a walk, do some yoga, and then she wrote down here. And I just want to highlight something that she says. She says, I've gained inspiration that will have a cascading effect on how I show up during the rest of my day. When we take control of our day, when we have our thinking in the right place, when we can really slow things down, first of all, plan our day, have a criteria for how we're going to live that day, it has a cascading effect throughout the rest of the day. I hope this is all making sense for all of us. Think, plan, do, reflect. Let's go through this quite quickly. Reflecting is an important part, right? And what we find is that many leaders do not spend enough time reflecting on what has happened, but are eager to move on to the next task. And this is a key insight that I want you to at least apply this for the next few days, right? At the end of the day, or first thing the next morning, just simply ask yourself these 3 questions. Number 1, what went well in the last 24 hours? Number 2, what could have gone better? And then number 3, how can I make the most of that today? It's simple, right? And I tell you why that's very powerful, right? A lot of things that happen to us, the negative things, in fact, let me just ask this. You sort of know the answer, but I'm going to ask it as a question for your benefit. If you had 5 great things that happened in a day, and there was one kind of negative thing, when you reflect on the day, which one do you remember? Just put it in the chat. I know you know the answer, but I'm just asking you the question just to tell you something that you already know. Which one is it? You have 5 great things, and then you had one thing that didn't go so well. Which one would you remember? The negative, all of you. The negative, the negative, the negative. We all know that, right? So you can see how without reflecting, first question, remember what the first question is? What went well? I tell you, it's happened to me. There've been things that have happened at work, and then I think about what went well. And I say, you know what? I got time with my son. I got time with my daughter. I got time with my wife. Or this is what happened. You get my point? Like, because we ask ourselves the question, our brain has to find the answer. So reflection is a very powerful way. And remember, it's daily. So we can begin to accumulate some kind of level of success each day. And when we don't do that, though, we miss key learns that could help us avoid repetitive mistakes. We also find that when leaders don't do this, they miss key opportunities that could have accelerated them faster that they would have not thought of, and that they're not aware of that. It's actually reflection that brings insight. Now, what you have on the screen there is Art Fry, that's his name. He was a colleague of Spencer Silver, who was a scientist at 3M. Now, Spencer was trying to create a super strong adhesive, but then he stumbled upon something different, which was some kind of low-level glue that could only stick some paper on temporarily, right? So Art Fry takes this and uses it for his hymn book. And then over time, they realized that actually this could be used for other things. And guess what? What you have there, the Post-it note, that's how the Post-it note was invented. The point is, even when things actually don't go as successful as we think, when we reflect on it, we can gain insight from it. Okay, here's another client of mine. I'm just going to quickly share because of time. I asked her some questions, and she, in reflection, realized that the things that were bothering her was more about what other people thought. All right, I'll just move forward on that. Let's talk about learn. Learning is an important part. Most leaders are not aware that they need to learn both horizontally and vertically. And what I mean by that is simply that we think always, a lot of times in work, you think of your next level, your next promotion, your next, but we're now in a world where we need to learn horizontally. In the space that we are at, we can always learn new things in that space, learn deeper, learn the competencies, become a master at it, right? And because of this VUCA world that we're in, we also now need to not just learn, but unlearn and relearn certain things to survive. A lot of people are still stuck in the industrial age way of doing things. And we realize that in some situations, we have to let go in order to move forward to a future. And what we also see is that they don't realize that every challenge is an opportunity to learn. In fact, if you were to look at your challenges and ask a different question and say, how can I learn from this? You'll be amazed how much will come out. And so, creating a learning environment is the leader's responsibility. It's your responsibility with your team to ask more questions than giving more answers, or to allow people to actually discover things, create that learning environment. But we ourselves also need to be quick to let go of certain things that worked in a different era that perhaps aren't working today. And here's another client of mine who says, I realize that each day is an opportunity to learn, and it's amazing how I am aware, even when I am going off track. So begin to wrap things up here. So hang on with me. Talk about consistency, how to maintain steady focus and achieve your long-term goals. So my job today is not necessarily to make you like me, it's to tell you the truth, and I hope that that's okay, because what we're seeing, I'm just going to go through this quite quickly, is that we're seeing certain patterns. People are starting in their days without a plan, or they have a plan that's not necessarily connected. They agree with multiple projects, they take on too much, they're overwhelmed with tasks throughout the day. Productivity is suffering and it's impacting our well-being, sacrificing sleep, etc. So when I'm speaking to many leaders, I find out that this is a big challenge. So speaking with leaders about this, I realize that it comes down to the lack of one thing that matters, and that's this whole idea of a daily focus framework. We need a daily focus framework to attack each day. And that's what the 5 daily habits is all about. It's to help you stay focused, do more with less stress. Let me give you an idea of what the kind of things that is in our daily focus package, right? It's a workshop. We start off with helping you understand, uncover what is that purpose, right? A lot of times we talk about it, but we don't actually get people to write something down. What we do when we coach and train and do our workshops, we actually get people to write this down. And so what the journey looks like is people then end up having at least a 90-day view of where they're going and a daily view. But in addition to that, what we find is that what helps us to maneuver around the challenges is to have a weekly focus, because we found that having the weekly focus, right, with that, we're able to deal with the urgent while still staying on track with your priorities in the various areas. Remember, we talked about your holistic life. So if you're married, we'll talk about that. You have some kind of plan there. If you've got kids, you also talk about that. I remember sharing with a group about how in my calendar I've got time with my wife, time with my daughter, time with my son. I remember somebody I was training saying, "What? You put that in your calendar?" And I was like, "Absolutely. If you don't do that, when is it going to happen?" Right? And the reason why we've come up with this workshop, again, here's just a sample of a typical training or coaching session where I will ask people, what they're struggling with. Focus, 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 focus. You can see this is real content from people, right? So this is the reason why this is an important part, right? That we need to make a high priority. And here's another client of mine. He says, with a shift in mindset that helped him to do things different. So in order for us to be able to be consistent, we need to have a shift in mindset. And here are a few things that we need to have. We need to have clarity on the essentials. What's your purpose? Where are you heading? We need to have priorities. What are the things that are important to you inside and outside of work? And then we need to start practicing these micro habits. Rather than changing a lot in a short time, we need to change one habit at a time. And that's a challenging thing for us to do. But that's the secret of making this work. And then we can partner with others to hold us accountable, find other people to journey with, so that the change is easier, and then keep track so that we can see our progress. And this is what's going to help us build consistency. So in the next 10 or so minutes, just going to walk you through a few things, how maybe we can work together. Because to be productive, you don't need to be focusing on several things. You need a process in place that helps you know what the most valuable things are that you should be doing at that moment. And so you need a system that is going to help you be consistent. And so many people are very passionate about this. They're passionate about the direction that they want to go. But you need, at some point, you need this kind of thing where each day that you are achieving your goals and making progress. And so I want to share with you the opportunity of what I've built. Again, it's an invitation only thing. I'll just quickly walk you through, right? How, if we can work together to help you stay focused, if that's the case, right? As I said, it's application only. So I'm not selling anything here today. I'm just going to give you an opportunity for us to maybe book time together, talk through what might be a good fit. So the first question is, do you want lasting behavior change? Again, a lot of what I do is based on the research that I've done. So it's not just my own idea. And there's a fantastic book called Crucial Influence. What they did was that they figured out that, wow, how come it's so difficult for people to change their behavior, even though the intent is there? And they found out there were 6 areas that a person needs to stack in order to be able to have consistent change. One of them is their personal convictions. They need to have motivation through their values, and then continue to grow in their ability. That's on the personal side. But then they also need social support, either by having a coach and having peers that can support them on those decisions. And then they also then need to be in the right structure where that's reminding them of the things that are important. And that's how I have built my workshop and my program, which is to help people to develop these habits and be consistent in them. So let me walk you through what this entails. Number one is a workshop, right? So it's a 1-day workshop, 4 hours. And in that, what we do is that we clarify your leadership purpose. We help you set your goals, at least a year goal, if not longer. Then you have a plan, a 90-day plan. Then you'll be able to create your weekly planning system. And as I said, establish accountability partners. And then you have your daily focus strategy. So by the time you're talking about your daily focus, it's built on something bigger. In addition to that, you will then have monthly group coaching calls, right, to help you, right, to personalize it, where you can ask questions, we can tackle challenges and celebrate wins. And I've created the platform so that each person can help and partner with others. So again, thinking about the crucial influence system, where you've got training, you've got accountability partner, you've got a clear plan, and we've built a community platform as well, right? Where in addition to that, in the 12-month support program, with the monthly calls and the questions, you also have access to content and all that, so that you're not just alone. It's a community of leaders. And finally, we also have what's called the online course, so you can also go back to it and do it in your own pace, where you get the tools, the think, the plan, the do, the reflect, and the learn. So what you get inside our community package is 12 months access to the training, the 90-day plan, all hands on call once a month, 12 months access to the platform where you can ask questions and you have your accountability, access to past and previous hand-on calls. So even if you can't attend, there'll be a recording you can always go back to, and access to the Leaders Daily Focus Framework online course. We're consistently designing resources, templates, toolkits. We're about to come up with an app where you can actually track yourself. In addition to that, we're also creating a self-assessment tool that you can have, right? Now, all this, all right, is just £99 a month. That's the whole package. But as I said, I'm not selling anything here, right? The whole point of this is, if this is of interest to you, then let's book time to talk through how maybe this might work for you. We've got other packages as well. They're bigger packages one-on-one coaching. But this is kind of like entry level if this is something that's of interest to you. And as I said, it's £99 a month. And here's the reason why this is important. At the end of the day, we want to build confident, conscious, and competent leaders that are achieving results in both business and life. And so I'm looking for a few people. I'm sure this is not for everybody. And what I would like to see, we're going to put the link in the chat. If you can click on that and then just book. Yeah, as I said, it's a conversation first to have before anything else, right? Is this a right fit for you? Maybe it's not. Maybe it is. Again, there's no pushy salesperson here, right? At the end of the day, it's what will fit your situation. As I said, there are other packages as well. This is just the entry level, but we want to build a community of leaders where we're helping and supporting each other. And for those that do actually sign up for the workshop, I'll also give them a 30-minute clarity session with me in order to be able to walk through everything so that you've got some clarity of what you're trying to do. All right, so that's the content today. Thank you very much, everybody. If you do have any questions right now, please put it in the chat or the Q&A. Let me just check and see. Many of you stayed on all right to the end. I really appreciate that. Brilliant. Lucy, great to hear from you. So many people on. This is, yeah. So thank you so much. If there are no questions, all right. Yeah, people, thank you very much, everyone. All right. Well, I want to thank you all, right? Thank you for your participation, for being open, honest. We're all in this together, right? Just want to help each other. I immediately after this will send an email, all right, with the link for just in case you didn't get that. If you want to book the appointment, even if it's just to have a chat, we'll do that. And then when the recording is ready, we'll send that out as well.